The courtroom doors open. Not dramatically, not heroically. Maya Chen walks in carrying a cardboard box held together with packing tape. Her blazer is too big. Her shoes click unevenly on the marble floor. The left sole is separating. Every head turns. And every head turns away just as quickly. She is not worth looking at. That is a consensus within 3 seconds. Richard Vale is already seated at the plaintiff's table. His legal team surrounds him like a wall. 3 attorneys, 2 paralegals, a junior associate whose only job appears to be refreshing Vale's water glass. Vale doesn't look at Maya. He is reading something on his phone and smiling. Maya sets her cardboard box on the defendant's table, sits down. Alone, Derek Holt, Vale's lead attorney, glances over his shoulder, takes in the secondhand blazer, the tape box, the empty chair beside her where a co-counsel should be sitting. He turns back to Vale and says something quiet. Vale laughs. The gallery murmurs. The bailiff announces the judge. Everyone rises. Judge Harold Brennan enters. He is already looking at his notes. He sits. The courtroom sits. He reaches for his water glass, and then his eyes move, almost involuntarily, to the defendant's table. He sees Maya Chen. Something crosses his face. Not recognition. Something older than recognition. He looks down at his notes immediately. Too quickly. Maya is watching him. She saw it. Judge Brennan speaks. This is case number 2024, CV 4471, Vale Properties versus Maya Chen. The plaintiff alleges unlawful occupation of property located at 14 Meridian Street. Ms. Chen, I see you are representing yourself today. Maya answers, Yes, Your Honor. Holt is already on his feet. Holt addresses the court. Your Honor, my client has been extraordinarily patient. Ms. Chen has occupied the property illegally for 8 months, refused all legally tendered notices, and has demonstrated a pattern of Maya interrupts. I'd like to object. Silence. Holt stops, turns. The gallery leans forward. Holt speaks, almost amused. You'd like to. You're not a lawyer, Miss Chen. You can't simply, Maya responds. I'd like to object to the characterization that I have refused all notices. I received one notice, delivered to the wrong address. I have the postal receipt. She places a single sheet of paper on the table, doesn't hand it to anyone, just places it there, like she has many more where that came from. The judge stares at her, his hands pressed flat against the bench. Holt recovers instantly. This is what he does. Holt addresses the court. Your Honor, a misdirected notice does not void 6 prior communications delivered through legally recognized channels. We have documentation of each attempt. What Ms. Chen is doing here is a delay tactic, a last-ditch effort to remain in a property she has no legal claim to. He gestures toward Maya with the ease of a man swatting a fly. Holt continues. She has no lawyer, no documented ownership, no deed, no lease agreement recognized under current property law. She is, with respect, wasting this court's time. Polite laughter from Vale's table. Vale himself leans back in his chair, arms crossed, watching Maya with particular satisfaction of a man who already knows the ending. Judge Brennan speaks. Ms. Chen, the plaintiff has submitted a property deed registered to Vale Properties as of March 2021. Can you produce a competing document of legal standing? The gallery goes quiet. Maya opens her cardboard box. She removes a folder, sets it on the table, does not open it yet. Maya speaks. I can, Your Honor, but I'd first like to establish the timeline of how Vale Properties came to hold that deed. Holt objects immediately. Objection. Relevance. The how is not the question before this court. The what is the question. And what is clear, she does not own the property. Judge Brennan rules. Sustained. Ms. Chen, please limit your response to documentation of legal standing. Do you have a deed, a registered lease, or an inheritance filing? Maya answers, I have all three. The first shift, not dramatic, just a stillness that falls over the room. Holt's smile doesn't disappear, but it changes, becomes fixed. Holt speaks sharply. Your Honor, we were not made aware of any competing deed or inheritance filing during discovery. If Ms. Chun is fabricating, Maya cuts him off. I'm not fabricating. Holt raises his voice. Then why wasn't this submitted during pre-trial? Maya answers, because I didn't have access to it during pre-trial. Holt presses, and you magically have access to it now? Maya answers quietly, someone gave it to me last week. Holt turns to the gallery, playing them. Someone. She was given mystery documents by an unnamed someone. Your Honor, this is... Judge Brennan cuts him off sharply. Mr. Holt, sit down. Holt sits, but he is already reaching for his phone under the table. Vale leans forward slightly, the first crack in his armor, so small no one notices. No one except Maya. Judge Brennan continues. Ms. Chun, what documents do you have, and from whom did you receive them? Maya begins. I have a lease agreement signed in 1999 between Vale Properties, then operating as Meridian Holdings, and a tenant named Susan Chen. I have a deed of inheritance filed in 2019 transferring the property rights of 14 Meridian Street to me upon my mother's death, and I have a signed letter. She pauses. Maya continues. I'll get to the letter in a moment. Your Honor, Judge Brennan says, very still. Continue. Maya explains. My mother, Susan Chen, lived at 14 Meridian Street for 22 years. She paid rent every month, without fail. I have receipts for all 264 payments. She was given a verbal promise, later confirmed in writing, that the property would transfer to her ownership after 20 years of tenancy under the original Meridian Holdings agreement. Holt stands again. Verbal promises have no legal. Maya cuts him off. It wasn't only verbal. She opens a folder, removes a document. It is old. The edges are yellowed. She holds it up. Maya speaks. The written agreement bears a signature. 2 signatures. Actually, she sets it down. Maya continues. Richard Vale's signature. And one other. She does not say whose. She lets it sit there. The judge's water glass is in his hand. He sets it down very carefully, like he is afraid of breaking something. Maya speaks. I'd like to submit this as Defendant's Exhibit A. The bailiff approaches, takes the document, carries it to the judge's bench. Brennan picks it up, reads the first line. His face doesn't change, but his hands, the hands he always keeps so still, develop the faintest visible tremor. Holt is on his feet before the judge can speak. Holt demands, Your Honor, we request the opportunity to examine any document submitted by the defendant before it is entered into evidence. Chain of custody is, Judge Brennan says quietly, Sit down, Mr. Holt. The tone is different now, not the controlled authority from before. Something underneath it. Holt sits. Vale leans over and whispers into Holt's ear. Holt shakes his head slightly. Vale's jaw tightens. Judge Brennan speaks. Ms. Chun, you said there are 2 signatures on this document. Whose is the second signature? The courtroom is absolutely silent. Maya responds. Before I answer that, Your Honor, I'd like to provide context, because the second signature changes the entire nature of this case, and I want the record to reflect what this document is before I name the person who signed it. Judge Brennan pauses, then speaks. Proceed. Maya continues. In 1999, Richard Vale was not yet the developer he is today. He operated under the name Meridian Holdings. He had one property, 14 Meridian Street, and he needed a co-signer, a legal guarantor, to secure the financing for his first major acquisition. She pauses, lets the room breathe. Maya continues. He found a guarantor, a respected local attorney at the time, someone whose name on a document opened doors. In exchange, Vale made a promise, not just to the guarantor, but to the tenant, my mother. The agreement stated clearly that my mother would be given the right to purchase the property at a fixed price after 20 years, and that in the event of her death before purchase, the right would transfer to her heir. Holt interrupts. Your Honor, even if this document exists as described, the agreement would need to be, Maya finishes the sentence, notarized, witnessed, and filed. It is. All three. She removes two more documents, places them on the table. The paralegal from Vale's team is frantically typing something into a laptop. Vale is no longer leaning back. He is sitting forward, his eyes on Maya like he is recalculating something, trying to figure out where he miscalculated. Maya speaks. Richard Vale knew about my mother's death in 2019. He received formal legal notification because the original agreement required it. He responded by relaunching the property under a new entity, Vale Properties, deliberately obscuring the Meridian Holdings history. He then spent 2 years generating fraudulent paperwork, suggesting the property had always been owned outright by his company. No tenant, no agreement, no inheritance right. Holt objects. This is speculation. This is a story, not a legal argument. Maya continues without stopping. The document I've submitted as Exhibit A proves the agreement existed. The notarization filing I'm submitting as Exhibit B proves it was legally recorded. And the filing I'm submitting as Exhibit C. She lifts the third document. Her hand is perfectly steady. Maya speaks. Is a fraudulent deed registration submitted by Vale Properties in April 2021, after my mother's death, after the inheritance right had already legally vested in me. The gallery reacts, not loudly, in the way courtrooms do, whispers, the scrape of a chair, someone sharp intake of breath. Judge Brennan calls for order. The room settles. But Brennan himself is not settled. He is looking at Exhibit A. Maya watches him look at it. Maya speaks quietly. Your Honor, would you like me to confirm the name on the second signature now? A long pause. Judge Brennan answers, almost inaudible. Yes. Maya speaks. The second signature on the 1999 Meridian Holdings Agreement, the co-signer who guaranteed Richard Vale's financing, is Harold James Brennan. The room detonates. The gallery erupts. A reporter in the back row stands up. Two of Vale's paralegals freeze. Holt's hand stops moving on his legal pad. Vale turns and looks at the judge. For the first time in this proceeding, Richard Vale looks afraid. Brennan does not move, does not speak, does not look up from the document. Holt scrambles. Your Honor, in light of this alleged connection, I must move that you recuse yourself immediately. This is an obvious conflict of... Maya speaks calmly. The conflict of interest is not why I mentioned it, Mr. Holt. Everyone looks at her. Maya continues. Judge Brennan co-signed that agreement, which means he also signed the tenant protection clause, which means he knew for 25 years that my mother had a legal right to that property. She lets that land. Maya continues. And when Richard Vale registered that fraudulent deed in 2021, he needed someone in the legal system to look the other way. Another pause. Maya speaks. I have records of 3 phone calls between Vale's personal number and Judge Brennan's chambers. In the 48 hours after my mother's death certificate was filed, the reporter in the back is writing furiously. Holt has stopped breathing. Maya sits down, calm, still, like she has been waiting for this moment for 3 years. Because she has. Holt finds his footing. This is what expensive lawyers do. They fall, and they get up, and they find the angle. Holt addresses the court. Your Honor, if you are able to continue, I would argue that this entire presentation is a calculated attempt to manufacture chaos. Phone records prove proximity, not conspiracy. A co-signature from 1999 does not prove Judge Brennan had any knowledge of or involvement in any deed registration 22 years later. He straightens his jacket. Holt continues. Furthermore, the documents submitted by Ms. Chen have not been verified. The chain of custody is unknown. She admitted herself that she received them from someone last week. These could be fabrications. They could be forgeries. We have no way to know because she walked into this courtroom with a cardboard box and a story. He gestures at the box like it is evidence of her poverty, like her poverty itself is the argument. The gallery shifts because it almost works. Maya is a young woman alone. The documents are old. The story is complicated. And Holt is standing there in a $3,000 suit with 20 years of credibility. Vale exhales slowly, rolls his shoulders back. The smirk is returning. Vale says low to Holt, "Finish it." Holt addresses the court. Your Honor, we move that all documents submitted by the defendant today be held pending forensic verification. We move that the original case proceed on the established evidence. And we respectfully suggest, given the extraordinary allegations made against you personally, that you either recuse yourself or issue a clear ruling that these allegations do not constitute grounds for delay. It is a trap. If Brennan recuses, the case resets. Delays. Months pass. Maya loses her home in the meantime. If Brennan stays, Holt will argue bias against Vale. Either way, Vale wins. The judge is quiet. Too quiet. Maya reaches into her box again. Maya speaks. Your Honor, before you rule on that motion, I'd like to call a witness. Holt objects. We are not at the witness examination phase. Maya responds. I understand, but the witness is elderly, and she is present today because she may not be available at a later date. A pause. Judge Brennan asks slowly, who is the witness? Maya answers. Her name is Eleanor Marsh. Vale freezes. It is subtle, a microsecond, but Maya sees it. She has been watching Vale's face all morning. Vale says to Holt, barely audible, suddenly urgent. Stop this. Stop this now. Holt stands immediately. Your Honor, I strenuously object. We have no prior notice of any witness. Judge Brennan cuts him off. I'll allow it. Holt stares at the judge. Holt protests. Your Honor, Judge Brennan speaks firmly, almost desperately. I said, I'll allow it, Mr. Holt. Bring in the witness. And for the first time, Derek Holt looks at Richard Vale with something other than confidence. He looks at him with the expression of a man who realizes he may not have been given the full picture. The doors at the back of the courtroom open. Eleanor Marsh walks in, slowly, with a cane, in her worn wool coat. She looks like someone's grandmother. Richard Vale grips the edge of the table. Eleanor Marsh settles into the witness chair. She adjusts her glasses, sets her cane against the railing, folds her hands in her lap. She looks at Maya and gives a very small nod. Maya nods back. Holt is already moving. Holt addresses Eleanor. Your Honor, before this witness says a single word, I want the court to note that Ms. Chen's entire strategy today appears designed to embarrass and implicate individuals rather than present a coherent legal defense. This witness, whoever she is, has not been properly introduced into the evidentiary record. I move that any testimony be. Judge Brennan interrupts. Mr. Holt, your objection is noted. Overruled. Ma'am, please state your name for the record. Eleanor speaks. Eleanor Judith Marsh, former notary public, State of New York, retired. Judge Brennan says, barely moving. Former notary. Eleanor confirms. 31 years. The implication is instant. If she notarized documents, she is the chain of custody. Holt recovers. Ms. Marsh, how do you know the defendant? Eleanor answers, I knew her mother first. Holt continues, and when did you meet Maya Chun? Eleanor responds, she found me 6 months ago. She'd spent 2 years looking. Holt presses, looking for you specifically? Eleanor answers, looking for the person who could confirm what she already knew was true. Holt asks, and what is that? Eleanor speaks, that the documents her mother kept, the lease, the agreement, the deed transfer filing, were legitimate, that I witnessed and notarized each one, that they were filed correctly, and that Richard Vale knew exactly what he was destroying when he had them buried. Holt reacts sharply. Had them buried? That's a serious. Eleanor continues calmly. The original filing from 1999 was removed from the county recorder's office in 2021. I know, because I went looking for my own copy of the notarization record. It was gone. 22 years of documentation. Gone. Holt responds. Records are sometimes lost. Eleanor answers simply, records are sometimes removed. The gallery is completely still. Holt pivots. Holt challenges Eleanor. Ms. Marsh, you are an elderly woman who retired. When exactly? Eleanor answers. 2018. Holt continues. 6 years ago. And you are asking this court to accept your memory of documents you claim to have notarized 25 years ago? Eleanor responds calmly. I don't ask the court to accept my memory. I ask it to accept my copy. She reaches into her coat pocket, removes a folded envelope. Eleanor speaks. I kept a personal duplicate of every document I ever notarized. 31 years. Every one. She sets the envelope on the railing. Holt stares at it. Eleanor continues. That is my copy of the 1999 Meridian Holdings Agreement, my copy of the filing confirmation, and my copy of a letter written in 2021 that was sent to the county recorder's office requesting that certain historical filings be reclassified and archived under a regulatory review process. She pauses. Eleanor speaks. The letter is signed. She looks directly at Richard Vale. Eleanor speaks. Would you like to tell the court whose signature is on it? Or shall I? Vale stands up. Vale shouts, shaking. Your Honor, I demand Judge Brennan slams a gavel. Mr. Vale, sit down. The room goes electric. And Maya Chun, for just one moment, closes her eyes because she knows it is almost over. The envelope is carried to the judge's bench. Brennan opens it. His hands are not steady. They haven't been steady since Eleanor Marsh sat down. He unfolds the pages carefully, like a man handling something he was hoping he would never have to touch. He reads, The courtroom waits. Holt is standing. He doesn't know whether to speak or sit. For the first time in 20 years of courtroom performance, Derek Holt does not know his next line. Judge Brennan speaks without looking up. Mr. Holt, I am going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. Holt answers carefully. Of course, Your Honor. Judge Brennan asks, did you at any point advise your client, Richard Vale, about the existence of the 1999 Meridian Holdings Agreement? A pause. Holt answers, I was made aware of it as part of background research. Yes. Judge Brennan continues. And did you advise your client that the agreement carried enforceable legal weight? Holt's jaw tightens. Holt answers, I advised my client that the agreement's enforceability was debatable. Judge Brennan repeats the word, debatable. He sets the pages down. Finally looks up. Judge Brennan speaks. Mr. Holt, the agreement is notarized, witnessed, counterfiled, and bears the signature of a sitting judge. There is nothing debatable about it. The gallery reacts. Quietly but unmistakably, the tide is turning. Judge Brennan continues. I am going to say something now that I am aware carries personal consequence for me. I am saying it because it is the only legally and morally correct course of action remaining. He removes his glasses, sets them on the bench. Judge Brennan speaks. I co-signed the 1999 Meridian Holdings Agreement. I did so as a private attorney before my appointment to the bench. I was a guarantor, not a party to the tenant protections, but my signature on that document means I had full knowledge of its contents, including the inheritance clause. The reporter in the back has stopped writing, is recording instead. Judge Brennan continues. I received communication from Richard Vale in October 2021. He informed me that a deed discrepancy had arisen regarding 14 Meridian Street, and that he intended to resolve it through administrative reclassification. He did not tell me he intended to have the original filings removed. He told me it was a paperwork issue. He pauses. Judge Brennan speaks. I believe him, or I chose to believe him. I want the record to reflect that distinction. Maya is absolutely still. Judge Brennan continues. I took no action. I did not investigate. I did not report the discrepancy. I allowed it to proceed. And when this case was assigned to my court, I did not recuse myself because I believed incorrectly that my inaction did not constitute involvement. He looks at Maya directly. For the first time since she walked in, Judge Brennan says, I was wrong. The silence in the courtroom is the kind that happens when something true is said out loud after a very long time. Holt stands urgently. Your Honor, anything you say at this moment could be used. Judge Brennan answers. I am aware of that, Mr. Holt. He reaches for his gavel, and then he stops, looks at Maya again. Judge Brennan speaks. Ms. Chen, you knew from the moment you walked in. Maya answers. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Brennan continues. You could have moved to recuse me immediately. You chose not to. Maya explains. I needed you to read the documents. Your Honor, I needed you to see them in front of everyone. If you'd recused yourself at the start, this would have been buried in a procedural transfer and the documents would have disappeared again. A beat. Judge Brennan says quietly. That was very calculated. Maya responds. My mother taught me to be careful with the only ammunition I had. Another silence. And then Judge Harold Brennan does something none of the court reporters, none of the gallery, none of the legal team at Vale's table have ever seen him do in 30 years on the bench. He nods. At her, not dismissively, not condescendingly, with something that might be respect. Judge Brennan addresses the room. I am recusing myself from this case effective immediately. However, before I transfer jurisdiction, I am entering an emergency injunction. Effective now, no further action may be taken by Vale Properties regarding the property at 14 Meridian Street pending full judicial review of the documents submitted today. Holt protests. Your Honor, Judge Brennan continues. Furthermore, I am referring the matter of the 2021 County Recorder filing and the removal of original property documents to the State Attorney's Office for investigation. Vale explodes, standing. You can't. Judge Brennan slams the gavel once hard. Mr. Vale, you will sit down and you will remain seated, or I will have you held in contempt before I leave this bench. Am I clear? Vale sits, but he is shaking. Richard Vale, who came into this courtroom to evict a girl with a cardboard box, is shaking. Eleanor Marsh, still sitting in the witness chair, watches this with the patience of someone who has been waiting years for this specific moment. Judge Brennan speaks. Ms. Chen, Maya answers. Your Honor, Judge Brennan continues. You mentioned 3 items, and a sum that covers 22 years of rent that should have been building toward ownership but wasn't. Maya's attorney. She has one now, a woman who took the case pro bono after reading the court transcript, calls her with the news. Maya is in the kitchen of 14 Meridian Street when the call comes. The same kitchen her mother cooked in for 22 years. She is standing at the window when she hears the number. She doesn't celebrate. She doesn't cry. She sets her phone down on the counter, picks up a photograph. Her mother, young, laughing, standing in this kitchen. She props it against the window, so her mother is facing the light. Here is what no one at that courthouse expected. They expected Maya Chen to disappear, the way quiet women disappear after cases like this. After the courthouse steps, after the cameras stop, after the lawyers shake hands and drive away in their beautiful cars. They expected her to go home and be grateful and be small. She didn't. 14 months after that first day in court, Maya Chen stood in front of the city council and presented a proposal, a community legal fund, for tenants facing wrongful eviction, for families without the money for lawyers, for anyone who walks into a courtroom alone with only the truth in a cardboard box and needs someone who understands what that costs. It passed. The fund is named after Susan Chen. Richard Vale, in the middle of his criminal proceedings, attempted to have his charges reduced by claiming cooperation. The judge presiding over his case is a woman. She denied the motion. Derek Holt withdrew from Vale's representation 3 days after the court date. He cited a conflict of interest. Legal observers noted the timing. He has not taken a property case since. Eleanor Marsh attended the fund launch. She wore the same wool coat. She and Maya don't talk much. They don't need to. Some alliances are made in documents and kept in silence. Maya Chen walked into that courtroom in a secondhand blazer with a cardboard box and a dead woman's letters. She didn't have a law degree. She didn't have money. She had the truth. And she had the patience to wait for exactly the right moment to hand it to someone who had no choice but to hold it. Her mother was right. They were never the weak ones. They were just saving their strength for the right room. The most dangerous person in any room is not the one with the most power. It is the one who has been quiet the longest and finally decided to speak.